especially Kapoor sir, Bhakku ji, Hariyam Arora ji, Khanna ji, Rajesh ji, Arun ji, Satbir ji, Kulbhushan Goyal ji, and many other names who deserve to be named here. Friends, all are welcomed. Friends, I must say that in these extra busy days, we are here together to uplift our professional knowledge. And it is happy to see such a large numbers. And it shows our commitment as well. I must add कि ये भी दिखाता है कि now we chartered accountant does not see ourselves as mere editors. We are exploring the area even more than that. I hope this webinar would be an enriching experience for all of us. Team DTBA is truly obliged for your participation. Anshu ji, आपने recording kindly start कर दी है. I request also to temporarily mute all the participants. Dear friends, I would like Hello. Excuse me. I think so. I was not audible before.
No, now you are audible.
Not audible. Sorry for that. Respected seniors and fellow members here. Good afternoon to all. I, Deepak Jain, welcome you all to this webinar. I welcome all the seniors here, especially Kapoor sir, Hitesh Bhakku ji, Hariyam Arora ji, Rajesh ji, Arun ji, Satbir ji, Kulbhushan ji, Khanna ji, and many other respectable names. Friends, in these extra busy days, we are here together to uplift our professional knowledge, and it is happy to see such a large numbers. It shows our commitment as well as it shows that nowadays we are not only seeing ourselves as mere editors, we are exploring the area, and I hope this webinar would be an enriching experience for all of us. Team DTBA is truly obliged for your participation, friends. अंशु जी, आपने recording चालू कर दी है. Thank you very much. And kindly temporarily mute all the participants so the proceedings can run smoothly. Thank you, Anshu ji. Dear friends, I would like to inform everyone that today's webinar is being chaired by President CA Sanjeev Gupta ji, and coordinator for the day is CA Arun Gupta ji, and co-coordinator here is CA Pushkal Soni ji. Our executive member CA Anshul Suji will take care of all the technical aspects. Friends, I am delighted to name my young renowned speaker for the today's webinar, CA Nikhil Goyal ji, who happens to be an advocate as to his academics also, who will deliberate on the very topic of the day, how to handle proceedings relating to section 147, 148 of the Income Tax Act in view of the latest judicial pronouncements as well. We are very happy and honored to have him with us today. Now, query session as informed by our speaker, sir. He will like to take queries at least after consolidating his subject for at least half an hour or 45 minutes. Now, I request my president, sir, to have a welcome address to the speaker and to all the present, sir. To Sanjeev ji, sir.
Thank you, Deepak ji. Dear seniors, colleagues, and youngsters, good evening to all of you. Friends, September is a very challenging period for we, the tax professional, as we have to work against the clock to complete the tax audit and filing of ITR. Friends, your bar always try to organize programs and discussions on the relevant topics so as to update the members' knowledge from time to time. In this connection, last month we organized a discussion on 43BH and in our discussion forum. And then on the platform of Study Circle, we organized a program on the topic of tax audit. Friends, topic of section 148 is always a very hot topic. And this section is used frequently and I must say arbitrarily by the department against the assessee from time to time. There is a lot of litigation on the same and daily new judgments are coming on the topic. So in the midst of this busy time, we at the bar decided to organize today's program so as to deliberate upon this section. To deliberate on this, we had amongst us a very young and dynamic CA advocate Nikhil Goyal ji from Chandigarh, who is an expert on the topic. I'm sure that after the deliberation with him, we all will be more learned and will be able to perform our duties in a more efficient manner. I'm grateful to Nikhil ji for sparing his valuable time and addressing this study circle meeting in the shortest possible time. Thank you, Nikhil ji. So, not standing between you and the learner speaker, I hand over the mic to CA Deepak ji to take the proceedings further. Deepak ji, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
To interrupt, we also welcome Ashok Goyal ji, Senior Chartered Accountant from Chandigarh, who is also father of Nikhil Goyal ji.
Ashok ji, welcome to
sir.
this program.
Welcome, ji, Ashok ji.
Welcome, ji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now I would like to invite our young executive member, CA Gary Jain ji, to formally introduce speaker, sir, before us. Gary ji, please.
Good afternoon to all present members. I feel immense pleasure to have a chance to introduce today's esteemed speaker, CA Advocate Nikhil Goyal ji. I would try to acknowledge all his milestones, but निखिल जी माफ कर देना अगर कुछ रह गया मेरे से, क्योंकि आपकी इंट्रोडक्शन बहुत लंबी है. तो सबसे पहले तो निखिल जी completed his BCom and then he completed his chartered accountancy in May 2016. He then graduated LLB and then he specialized LLM in corporate and financial laws. Then इन्होंने अपने प्रोफेशनल एक्सपीरियंस के अलावा वॉलंटरली भी बहुत सारा काम किया है. पहले हम उसको देखते हैं. इन्होंने वर्ल्ड व्यू एजुकेशन सर्विसेज प्राइवेट लिमिटेड में he helped in training and mentoring travel delegations along with on-site assistance to high school students from South Asia and Oxford International MUN. He worked in collaboration with Oxford Global to set up first Oxford model UN Singapore in October 2019. Then he also worked in Wieland International, where he led an international team to deliver MUN training and experience to help high school level students to improve English speaking and learn UN diplomacy. Then he also worked in World Federation of UN Associations at multiple locations. Next, now coming to his professional career. He worked in EY LLP as a client support specialist in Gurgaon office. He completed mandatory 3-year training as a part of Chartered Accountancy course and thereafter continued on as CSS. He worked in corporate tax and regulatory advisory team for the technology, media, telecommunications, and financial services sector. Experience of working on international taxation advisory, permanent establishment, risk identification, DTAA advisory, inbound and outbound tax structures, and corporate tax compliances. Then he moved on to join Goyal A. Kumar and Company as a partner. There he practiced as a chartered accountant, holding certificate of practice and focusing on matters before Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, Delhi and Chandigarh benches, First Appellate Authority, and also the tax administration. Then he moved on to form his own firm, GAK Partners, where he practiced as advocate with litigation in specialized economic laws with representation before Punjab Haryana High Court, Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, National Company Law Tribunal, Income Tax Settlement Commission, and ED Chandigarh. इनके पास जो इनके कोर एरियाज हैं वो इनके टैक्स लिटिगेशन, चाहे वो डायरेक्ट टैक्स हो, इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स हो, यहाँ की रेट्स हो, और हर तरह का जो भी टेढ़ा कोई मैटर आता है उसमें स्पेशलाइज करते हैं. तो नाउ आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट दीपक जैन जी टू टेक प्रोसीडिंग्स फर्दर.
थैंक यू वेरी जी, थैंक यू. मजा आ गया सर इंट्रोडक्शन सुन के सर की. तो ये भी पता लगा कि सर जो है वो मुश्किल मर्जों की दवा है. ग्रेट सर. In between, some more members have joined. We welcome you all. Vikas Gupta ji, Rajiv Kaushal ji, and all other who joined a little late. We welcome you all. Now, without any further delay, as everyone is eagerly waiting to listen to this young CA Nikhil Goyal ji, I hand over the dais to Nikhil. Nikhil sir, please.
Good evening,
Nikhil.
everyone. And thank you, first of all, to the association for giving me this platform and this opportunity to address this gathering. And I would say in great numbers, considering the time that we're in terms of our professional duties, and to see such an eager participation. I would like to thank the President CA Sanjeev Gupta ji, Secretary Deepak Jain ji, Mohit Gupta ji, Vice President, Shilpi Sharma Sethi ji, the Joint Secretary, Arun Gupta and Pushkal Soni ji, conveners to today's program, both of whom have been in constant touch in the past as well. And I will try to address this very vast sea of a topic today for all my fellow members. And there is one too many developments. तो मतलब इसको ऐसे सोच के चलें कि अगर कोई प्रोफेशनल कोविड से पहले सो गया था और अभी जागा है कुछ दिन पहले, तो कुछ ज़्यादा हुआ नहीं है, आपके लिए फ़ायदा ही हुआ था, आपका रीअसेसमेंट का 1 साल घटा ही था। सो उनके लिए तो शॉर्ट स्टोरी इतनी है, अगर आप कोविड में सोए थे और अभी जागे हैं, तो लॉ में कुछ नहीं बदला, आपको सिर्फ आपके क्लाइंट्स को फ़ायदा हुआ, वो 6 साल का जो पीरियड था 5 साल हो गया। बट वो सब प्रोफेशनल्स जिन्होंने एक एंग्जाइटी का दौर देखा है बिटवीन फाइनेंस एक्ट 2021 एंड द जर्नी अप टू फाइनेंस एक्ट नंबर 2 2024 वुड सर्टेनली एग्री ये पीरियड हमारे साथ जो निकला है, इट हैज़ बीन सो फुल ऑफ चैलेंजेस, सो फुल ऑफ इंटरप्रिटेशंस एंड filled with professional opportunities throughout. I have personally seen more than 500 writs, maybe more, through this period. And I can say that litigation has increased manifold. अभी सेशन स्टार्ट होने से पहले ही एक डिस्कशन चल रहा था बिटवीन द एग्जीक्यूटिव कमिटी दैट whenever our tax man or the lawmakers, they try to rationalize a law, वो rationalization का impact ऐसा आता है कि litigation टू फोल्ड हो जाता है, जहाँ पे rationalization का purpose था कि litigation should end. तो इनफैक्ट ऑन अ वेरी फनी नोट, विवाद से विश्वास जब भी आता है उसके साथ लिटिगेशन लेके आता है, जहाँ की उसका तो पर्पस ही विवाद खत्म करने का था. इनफैक्ट वी हैव फॉट मेनी इश्यूज विद रिस्पेक्ट टू विवाद से विश्वास आल्सो when it came out. But 148 and the reopening law or the code of reopening has been one of the most engaging topics and also an anxiety driving topic, I would say. A lot of professionals have been lost in the interpretations because वही दोबारा पुरानी कहानी चलती आई. सेक्शन बनाया, उसकी एक्सप्लेनेशंस डाली, 8 प्रोवाइजो डाल दिए, कहानी कहीं की कहीं पहुंच जाती है. फिर पुराने लॉ का सपोर्ट भी दिया. फाइनेंस एक्ट 21 से लेके 23 तक कंटिन्यूअसली उसी लॉ को बार बार समझाना पड़ा, और फाइनली जाके 2024 सितंबर 1 सितंबर 2024 से there is some sort of change back to what the original sense of the section as it should have been has transpired. I would not say this is also free from litigation. I will touch the highlights. But in order to properly gauge and appreciate the litigation that surrounds this topic, I would like to start off by discussing the background of the law of reopening. So अगर हम background को appreciate नहीं करेंगे, we will not understand why certain points, although not part of the legislation itself, can still become very relevant in terms of litigation on these aspects or in order to shape the law as is. Now, coming to start off, the major change, the first change, I would say, with respect to reopening of assessment prior to 2021 and today, because the threshold remains the same, was the basis of reopening of assessment. The basis or the goalpost has been shifted from recording a reason to believe that income has escaped assessment. The wording has been converted to having information in possession. ये रीजन टू बिलीव अपने आप में एक ऐसी लिटिगेशन थी जो इनफैक्ट जीके एंड ड्राइव शाफ्ट 2002 का एक लॉ है, 2003 में रिपोर्ट हुआ. जीके एंड ड्राइव शाफ्ट्स वाज द लॉ व्हिच सेड दैट रीजंस वंस रिकॉर्डेड had to be supplied to the assessee after filing of a return. The assessee could challenge those objections. The assessing officer was bound to pass a speaking order on those objections, and thereafter the assessment proceedings will continue. 2002 में ही ये सब क्लैरिफाई कर दिया गया. Despite that, the litigation on this topic continued up to 2021, and even after that there are judgments on the old law where assessing officers have blatantly misread the directions of the Supreme Court. In a way, there are multiple examples, and my professional friends would agree. Reopening of assessment threshold set कर दिया गया है, a reason has to be recorded. There are cases where reasons were recorded after the reopening of assessment. Approvals were taken after the request for copy of reasons by the assessee. There are a lot of assessments that have happened over this period where, despite the assessee seeking a copy of the reasons recorded and the satisfaction note, the assessing officers continued with the assessment, and without passing a speaking order on the rejection of the objections, the same were clubbed in the assessment order itself, thereby diluting the very decision of the Honorable Supreme Court. The idea was that the assessing officer is supposed to address your objections prior to continuing the assessment proceedings, और more likely than not होता क्या था, आपका assessing officer आपको copy of reasons भी दे देता था, साथ में ही 142(1) का notice थमा देता था, जिसमें 10 questions का answer भी देना है. And a lot of professionals also, because compliance has to be made to a notice under section 142(1), because it also carries a penalty under section 271(1)(b) for non-compliance, which now is 272(a)(1)(d). So professionals used to respond to the notice also, the assessees used to respond to the notice also. At the same time, they used to file their objections to the reasons recorded. And एक clubbed order में ही assessment भी कर दी जाती थी और लिख दिया जाता था कि आपके objections valid नहीं. These have been held to be illegal, and in order to incorporate this thought into the law, what I would say the lawmaker has in fact tried to incorporate this judge-made law of GK and drive shafts into the act was the introduction point of section 148A. How its execution is going, we are very well aware. And by professional experience, all the members can agree, we have hardly seen any section 148A proceedings not culminating into a section 148AD order and a section 148 notice thereafter. There are very limited examples. There are examples, I would say there are, it's not like there are none. There are examples where proceedings have been dropped. Now, the change that has been brought into with effect from 1421 is that there is a requirement to do a issuance of notice, inquiry, investigation, and personal hearing prior to issuance of the notice under section 148. So what does 148A provide? Section 148A of the Act as it stood on 1421 provided that the assessing officer is required to first conduct an inquiry under clause A. If no inquiry is required, he may directly proceed to issue a show cause notice to the assessee, giving him all the information with respect to the information in possession, and allow the assessee an opportunity to file a response under clause C with a minimum period of 7 days. Please note this fact about minimum period of 7 days, because this will be relevant to Finance Act number 2. And the assessee had an option to seek an adjournment for up to 30 days. In this period, if the assessee files a reply, the assessing officer is to consider on jurisdictional aspects only that whether a reopening is made out on the basis of the information in possession. अब सबसे बड़ा फ्लॉ इस इंट्रोडक्शन का क्या हुआ? सबसे पहले इस थ्रेशोल्ड को ही गलत समझा गया। I'm sorry. 148 AD was a provision which required the assessing officer to pass a speaking order in the same terms as was required in terms of GK and drive shafts. Meaning thereby, the assessing officer was supposed to apply his mind to the information in possession, the objections raised by the assessee, and arrive at a conclusion that the information in possession relates to escapement of income. However, a standardized template of orders have been passed starting from 22 up till now. अभी आपने अगर 18-19 के आपके एसएससीज के केस खुले होंगे एंड इन केसेस आप सर्च मैटर्स हैंडल कर रहे हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल ओमैक्स, they have issued notices for even 22-23 assessment year as well, 21-22 and 22-23 assessment year as well. I will explain the logic why these notices were issued in the month of August. एक स्टैंडर्ड टेम्पलेट लगा दिया गया है दैट मेरे पास इंफॉर्मेशन है, वो इनसाइड पोर्टल से है, उस इंफॉर्मेशन में ये लिखा है, आप अपना जवाब देते हैं, आप मेरिट्स का जवाब भी देते हैं, आप ज्यूरिसडिक्शनल एस्पेक्ट्स पे भी जवाब देते हैं. All kinds of replies, very well drafted replies I've seen at multiple junctures by our respected chartered accountants. But a one-line disposal of the objection. I have considered the submissions of the assessee, and I am of the opinion that that this is a fit case for reopening of assessment on the basis of information in possession. So how the assessing officers were interpreting section 148 AD was that this section will only save an assessee if the information in itself does not belong to the assessee. और इसको भी छोड़िए, in cases there are many where the information is correctly mapped to an assessee and the assessee responds with cogent proof that the information doesn't even belong to the assessee. Even in those cases, the assessment has been continued. So there has been a blatant violation of the provisions of section 148 AD. Law, as it took its course in Divya Capital by the Delhi High Court, in numerous other judgments by Bombay, Punjab, Haryana, and even Allahabad High Court, they have come to a conclusion that the assessing officer still is required to apply his mind to the reply and see if he can arrive at an escapement. By that, there is one, that information in itself does not belong to the assessee. This by itself was one of the biggest touch points to the entire controversy. And in fact, the Allahabad High Court was forced to impose costs of up to rupees 50 lakh on the department, where the assessing officer reopened the case of an assessee on the basis of information uploaded on the Insight portal without checking whether the information even belongs to the assessee, without even verifying the bank statements that were issued by the bank. Information mismatch is the first thing that one has to look into. This aspect will be relevant even in the times to come, because there is a new provision which is now being used more frequently than it was being used in the year 22 and 23. That is of section 135A, faceless collection of information. अभी हम सब return भर रहे हैं, so one thing that has been introduced in the regime of filing return is reconciliation of the information as per AIS TIS portal with the computation of income. Why that has become relevant? The moment there is a mismatch between AIS TIS and the returned income, you can expect a notice on your compliance portal. ये section 135A की compliance में the notification with respect to faceless collection of information was introduced, whereby after noticing a mismatch between the information available from reporting entities and the computation of income filed by an assessee, if a mismatch is not resolved within a period of 90 days of issuance of that notice, communication of that notice will happen through the same manner, that is by SMS and email and uploading on your compliance portal. If within 90 days this is not resolved, this will automatically be treated as information within the meaning of section 148 of the Act, firstly. And any information collected under the scheme notified under section 135A will also automatically lead to issuance of a notice under section 148 without even following the provisions of section 148A. So even under the scheme of the Act as it existed between 1/4/21 and 31st of August 24, and the scheme that will continue after 1st of September, one change that retains and is very important to note is the scheme under section 135. There are numerous challenges being laid that the compliance portal information is not being communicated to the assessee, that the reply filed by the assessee has not been considered while passing on the information, that no opportunity of being heard is allowed. So merely a notice comes on the compliance portal, you are either allowed to update your return or explain the mismatch between your return of income and the information. If that is not done, that will automatically lead to a reopening of assessment in your case. So this is one very important provision for all chartered accountants, and it is being very widely complied with. And I have noted duly that everyone is now reconciling the AIS-TIS information while filing the return of income. So this is something fatal to the assessee. If it is not done, it will lead to an automatic issuance of a notice under section 148 of the Act. अब 1/4/21 में एक major change जो आया, that led to one very big batch of writ petitions being filed and being agitated before the Supreme Court as well. Infamously, the Ashish Agarwal judgment that is called, not very widely celebrated per se because it did not provide a complete solution, at least for the taxpayer or the assessee. Now, the challenge before the Honorable Supreme Court was that by application of the TOLA, that is the Extension of Limitation Acts that was introduced on account of COVID, whether extensions can be granted despite a clear amendment in the law with effect from 1/4/21, which was answered by the Supreme Court and held that no. However, on the plea of the revenue that more than 90,000 assessments will be quashed if there is no relief provided, a one-time solution was provided that any notice under section 148 of the Act that was issued after 1st of April 21, but was done without compliance of section 148A, can now be converted into a notice under section 148AB, and the assessee was to be given an opportunity to file a reply and continue the proceedings. This judgment is of 4th of May 22. The directions in the judgment were applicable pan-India. Pan-India includes every state of India. There are still many assessees whose cases were opened after 1/4/21, did not opt for a writ petition, assessments completed, they are pending in appeals. They could be in first appeal, they could be in second appeal. It is a very relevant point for such assessees that the clear-cut directions of the Honorable Supreme Court applied to all cases. Now, where an assessment stood concluded and you are contesting this legal issue with respect to limitation, especially for years 13, 14 and 14, 15 should be noted, because the period of 6 years with respect to year 13, 14 and 14, 15 stood expired as of 1/4/21. Another issue that one can take into consideration, especially from an appeal perspective with respect to these cases, is the approving authority. Now 13, 14 and 14, 15 के case में तो आपकी assessment proceeding in itself was bad. That ground can still be taken at the appellate level because this is purely a legal ground. Facts are undisputed. The date of the notice, the DIN and the digital signature on your notice will prove everything. So that is a legal ground. As far as 16, 17 and 17, 18 are concerned, apart from the fact that 3 years have elapsed from the end of the relevant assessment year, both for 16, 17 and 17, 18, if the value of information escaping assessment as was available in the reasons recorded is below 50 lakh rupees, the benefit of section 149(1)(b) of the Act had to be given to those assessors. So that is another legal issue which one should examine as far as pending appeals are concerned. The third issue, if the information value is even above 50 lakh rupees, the relevant approving authority as per section 151 of the Act had to be 151 clause 2I. That was the principal chief commissioner of income tax or the chief commissioner of income tax. In all cases of 1617 and 1718, the income tax department would have taken the approval of the additional or joint commissioner, and in rare cases from the principal commissioner. This question of approving authority would also be applicable to the year 1516, because in the year 1516 also, the approval might have been taken from the principal commissioner, although it ought to have been taken from the principal chief commissioner or the chief commissioner of income tax. So these are very relevant in terms of all pending assessees, because all 90,000 did not go to court. So in cases where there has been no challenge laid to by way of a writ petition and you're pending in appeal, these legal aspects alone will negate the assessment proceedings altogether and will lead to a complete quashing of the assessment. So one should vehemently argue these points as far as the appellate jurisdiction is concerned. Now coming to the fact that जिन लोगों को दोबारा notice आ गए, who were again issued notice, there are two challenges there. कुछ लोगों ने पिछली assessment में अच्छे से participate करा, having received notices under section 148, participated in the assessment, explained their point, e-assessment हुई, faceless assessment हुई, and order आ गया in favor of the assessee. Even in those cases where the assessee participated and got a favorable order, the income tax department, using the judgment in Ashish Agarwal, reopened the case saying that now we are issuing you a notice under section 148. They are victims of double jeopardy. You can take the argument of change of opinion because everything has been properly examined by the assessing officer in the first go. Secondly, the Delhi High Court has also deliberated on this issue that for those assessees who are prejudiced by the second reopening, the law cannot be mechanically applied to them because at the end of the day, they have gone through the entire procedure of assessment. Although there will be a flip side to that argument because the department also will try to use this decision against you where you are prejudiced by the original assessment, and there they will say that, okay, Ashish Agarwal will not apply to us. How this litigation matures is anybody's guess as of today. It is maturing. Obviously, cases have started reaching up to the ITAT level in these cases. So this is as far as litigation on the aspect of limitation was concerned on account of the change of law as of 1/4/2021. अब लॉ बदला 1/4/21 को, इसके साथ लिमिटेशन में एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग 10 साल का क्लॉज ऐड कर दिया गया. सो जब बजट इंट्रोड्यूस करा गया, emphatically in the budget speech of the 2021 budget, it was told that we are reducing the threshold for reopening of assessment from 6 years to 3 years. But what came in the text was, yes, it is 3 years, but if the information which leads to belief of escapement of income is above rupees 50 lakh, an asset of above 50 lakh rupees is identified. In those cases, the threshold increases from 6 years to 10 years. But very interestingly, there is a protection to that in the first proviso to section 149. As the act stood, it said that for any assessment year being the relevant assessment year prior to 2021, so any assessment year up to AY 2021, a reopening of assessment could only be done for a period of 6 years because that was the law as it stood prior to the amendment on 1/4/21. So there was a looming fear with a lot of professionals that now cases can be expected for up to 10 years, and even cases up to 13, 14, 14, 15 would again be reopened because of the 10-year mark. However, that protection is now judicially tested also. Therefore, the position is clear. अब आपका केस अगर 20-21 असेसमेंट ईयर से पुराना है, उसको 6 साल के बाद नहीं खोला जा सकता. Now, in fact, after the introduction of the new law with effect from 1/9/24, if case has not been opened so far, अब आपको सिर्फ 5 years की limitation को ही note करना है. No other limitation would apply in your case. So as far as the older years are concerned, there have been instances where this provision has been violated in cases of assessees, although very limited, but this has happened. So if you have such a case, you can always take the ground that the first proviso protects any assessment year prior to assessment year 21-22, and the limitation period qua those years stands at 6 years only, and any reopening done beyond the period of 6 years from the end of the relevant assessment year is bad. So this is an aspect which has to be duly considered. अब सेक्शन 149 की लिमिटेशन में जो सेकंड एस्पेक्ट बी क्लॉज आता है, उसके अराउंड देयर इज a lot of litigation. Where it starts is the original section only noted identification of an asset of a value of rupees 50 lakh or more. The definition of asset had an inclusive definition, which was part of section 149 itself. वहां पे एक limited inclusive definition दी गई that the meaning of asset will include XYZ things. So there could be other things that could be considered an asset. But what has to be done is identification of an asset. So 21-22 में जो केस खुले, उसमें asset ढूंढना was a compulsory requirement. अब उस साल में सर अगर आपका केस बोगस एक्सपेंसेस का खुल गया, अगर आपका केस 2021 से लेके 2022 के बीच बिफोर द इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ द 1422 अमेंडमेंट खुला है, and the information was with respect to bogus expenditure, asset has not been identified by the assessing officer while recording the reasons for reopening of assessment under section 148 AD order. In a same way, any other expenditure or entries which could not have been identified as an asset can again not be questioned. In order to overcome these shortcomings, an amendment was introduced with effect from 1422. This was a prospective amendment with respect to the definition of what was included for the purpose of reopening of assessment. अब जी ये 50 लाख का जो कॉन्सेप्ट है, this again has seen litigation on the aspect whether this is the value of the information or it is the value of the information which has to represent escaped income of that amount. Very celebrated judgments coming from Karnataka High Court, coming from Allahabad High Court, coming from MP High Court, which clearly state this issue is pending in the Punjab Haryana High Court as well. The question is, आपको आज नोटिस निकाल देते हैं कि जी ये सेल्स एक्सप्लेन नहीं हो रही है आपकी, द इंफॉर्मेशन वैल्यू इज 52 लाख रुपीस, और यू हैव सोल्ड अ फ्लैट फॉर 60 lakh rupees. Now the question is, if you sold a flat for 60 lakh rupees, there was a cost of acquisition to that flat. There is indexation on that cost of acquisition. All of those factors had to be considered as would have been part of your reply in order to arrive at a conclusion that the escaped income, so the income is capital gain, the income is not the information value of 60 lakh rupees. So अगर आप सेक्शन को ध्यान से पढ़ेंगे, सेक्शन 149(1)(b talks about value of the escaped income has to be arrived at. So if that escaped income, after giving you benefit of say any cost of acquisition, takes you below the threshold of 50 lakh rupees, that has to be allowed to the assessee. So another jurisdictional issue, even if you have missed the bus in terms of conclusion of assessment, and ये बहुत असेसमेंट्स में ऐसा हुआ होगा जिनमें प्रॉपर्टी डिस्प्यूट्स की वजह से केस खुला है, प्रॉपर्टी डिस्प्यूट मीनिंग के परचेज और सेल ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी की वजह से आपका केस खुला है, या बोगस एक्सपेंसेस हैं जहाँ पे प्रॉफिट मार्जिन होना चाहिए था, और इट इज सम अनएक्सप्लेन्ड और अनअकाउंटेड सेल्स जिसके ऊपर योर जीपी रेट वुड हैव बीन द करेक्ट मेजर ऑफ इनकम. In all such cases, these issues can be agitated as purely legal grounds, especially where in conclusion of the assessment order, the income has been assessed below the level of 50 lakh. Now, say for example, your case was reopened saying that there is information that you have sold a property of 60 lakh, but what has been assessed to tax is a capital gains of rupees 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 15 lakh, or whatever it is, which goes to show that had that benefit been allowed at the time of threshold of proceeding, the reopening of assessment in itself would have been bad. This is now settled by 2 or 3 courts, MP High Court and Karnataka High Court being the most relevant. SR Cold Storage, the Allahabad High Court judgment where the 50 lakh rupee cost was imposed on the department for reopening a case wrongly. ये एक बड़ा looming issue है, ये बहुत assessees के केस में अभी भी rampantly होता है. Now I'll explain why there are wrong entries in the Insight portal, or there are error chances with respect to reopening of assessment. Now say for example आपने 12 लाख रुपए कैश डिपॉजिट करा, आपने 5 लाख रुपए कैश डिपॉजिट करा, फिर आपने 2 लाख रुपए कैश डिपॉजिट करा, 1 लाख रुपए कैश डिपॉजिट करा, you reach 8 lakh rupees, then you deposited another 3 lakh and 1 lakh. अब इसमें बैंक्स को 2 थ्रेशोल्ड्स पे रिपोर्टिंग करके देनी थी. When a bank does reporting, it does 2 reportings. One, it will do a reporting cash deposit of more than 2 lakh rupees. जब ये रिपोर्टिंग करनी होगी, उसमें जो 2 डिपॉजिट्स आपने 1 लाख वाले करे वो तो नहीं आएंगे. So bank will report 10 lakh rupees as cash deposited more than 2 lakh rupees. At the same time, the bank also has to report any cash deposits in aggregate above 10 lakh rupees in the account. So 12 lakh रुपए वहां आ जाएंगे. At the end of the day, the total cash deposit being 12 lakh rupees only will go up to 22 lakh rupees. Now, this was just an example to explain the duality of entries in Insight portal, because ये information आई AIR से. Now, apart from the AIR information, the assessing officer will again receive this information, because बैंक ने AIR में तो रिपोर्टिंग करी, बैंक ने उसके बाद यही इंफॉर्मेशन जाके SFT पे भी चढ़ा दी, सस्पिशियस ट्रांजैक्शन रिपोर्ट STF जनरेट कर दी इसकी. जब सस्पिशियस ट्रांजैक्शन रिपोर्ट जनरेट हुई आपके केस में, उसके ऊपर कोई फर्दर इंक्वायरी INCI ने तो नहीं करी, उन्होंने वो इंफॉर्मेशन एज CIB आपके असेसिंग ऑफिसर को ट्रांसफर कर दी. सो 22 बना हुआ था, वो 44 पे पहुंच गया, और थोड़ा बहुत कुछ जोड़ मोड़ करके असेसिंग ऑफिसर यूज्ड टू क्रॉस दी 50 lakh barrier. On a cash deposit of merely 12 to 15 lakh rupees, the assessing officers add it up to say that the information appearing on my Insight portal is of more than 50 lakh rupees and you are liable to reassess. One was these kind of issues. The second was information in investigation cases comes in batches. There is a possibility of human error. PAN number and assessee sometimes don't match. This leads to a reopening of assessment of the wrong assessee also. This was one such case in SR Cold Storage, Allahabad High Court, where the information was blatantly incorrect and did not belong to the assessee. We ourselves in the Punjab Haryana High Court have dealt with more than 10 such cases where the assessees have been issued notices under section 148 after examination under section 148 AD, merely on information that has either been double or triple counted, or with respect to assessees where the information does not even belong to the assessee. So ये double triple counting वाले issue पे तो the issue has even traveled up to the Supreme Court, where it was noted that the reopening of assessment cannot be done in such a manner. हमारे पंजाब हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट का ही केस था हरी सिंह, which went up to the Supreme Court on this very issue. So it is not a matter that one has to always come to the High Court. The point of discussing these judgments or these criterion is to see what kind of jurisdictional objections can lead to closure of assessments or quashing of your assessment proceedings without going into the merits of the case. जहाँ merits strong है case के, definitely one can also fight the merits, but jurisdictional aspects are very important in terms of coming to a conclusion for a quicker disposal of your petition. in appeal as well. So this 50 lakh issue, as I explained, not just pending on account of wrong interpretation of the information in possession, but also on the aspect of what is income. Income is supposed to be the receipt less the expenses that has to be seen as the income. And the second aspect is an asset representing that income also has to be identified by the SEC, whether that is in the shape of loans and advances in your books, whether that is in the shape of deposits in your bank accounts, whether it is in the shape of shares. That identification of asset is another very important aspect that has to be gone into by the officer at the time of reopening your case. These issues will continue even with the new regime after 1st of September 24. These issues will continue. So one has to be very careful while taking note of the information. Now, as far as information is concerned, हम में से बहुत लोग ये भी परेशान हैं कि despite asking for the information multiple times, the assessing officer refuses to share the entire report and only gives you a copy of the report along with the notice under section 148 of the Act or with the order under section 148 AD, where in fact that information was supposed to be supplied to the assessee at the time of issuance of the notice under section 148 AB of the Act. So this is another important aspect one should note, that even in the case of Ashish Agarwal, the Honorable Supreme Court has very clearly clarified. Delhi High Court in the case of sub-infrastructure has also very clearly clarified that at the stage of issuing the notice, you have to provide complete set of information along with all relevant annexures so that the assessee can mount their challenge or objections properly. So information being shared after passing off an order is a perversity in that proceeding and should be practically challenged. One aspect that was very unusual when the 148 amendments happened in 1421, which led to a lot of serial litigation around search cases, is that there was a sunset period given to section 153A and section 153C of the Act, which was the special code for conducting assessments in search cases. And in place of that, all search matters were included within the scope of reassessment under section 148. अब यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम क्या खड़ी होती थी, ये 10 साल वाली प्रोविजन जो है, that is not new for a search case. In fact, in 2017 itself, the amendment was made in section 153A of the Act, where the assessing officer was in possession of information with respect to an asset, where the value of such an asset identified represented escaped income of a value more than 50 lakh rupees. The assessing officer was empowered to open not just 6, but up to 10 assessment years from the date of the search. So this provision existed with respect to search cases even prior to the introduction in 1421. So ये लिमिट 10 साल की रही उन सारी सर्चेज में जो 1/4/2017 के बाद स्टार्ट हुई. And important thing to note in these cases was information as it is understood was given a complete go-by for search cases. If you see section 148 explanation 1 defines what can be information, and it includes multiple points. However, there is thereafter an explanation 2. Below explanation 1, there is an explanation 2 with respect to cases of search, where it says that where a search is conducted on the assessee or an information from the search pertains to or relates to another assessee, in such a case, the assessing officer is deemed to be in possession of information. The first question which arose, especially in these cases, was whether this deeming fiction under explanation 2 of section 148 will have to be tested against section 149 of the Act. The courts have answered in the positive that yes, merely possession of information cannot be sufficient. The value of that information has to test the thresholds of section 149. So if it is a period beyond 3 years, the information in possession, being a rebuttable presumption, has to be more than 50 lakh rupees. So the question is whether a satisfaction was required to be recorded prior to opening a case in a search reassessment. Yes. As the explanation in itself provides, it says where the assessing officer is satisfied. So a satisfaction can only be recorded with the prior approval of the relevant authority. And in such cases, the reopening of assessment has to be tested on the basis of the information or the reasons recorded. So it is not a case that assessing officer does not necessarily have the information at that point. In order to reopen a case, there has to be some information. It cannot be a case that a block assessment has been taken. Even in fact, with respect to searches conducted prior to 1421, after the decision in Abhisar Bildwell and Madras High Court in Agni Vishnu Ventures, this has been clarified that you cannot reopen any assessment year merely because a search has happened, and only where any incriminating material is found with respect to a particular assessment year, only there the reopening of assessment can be resorted to. In any other case, you have to resort to the residuary powers of section 147 of the Act. So relying on same principles, अब आपका केस अगर सर्च का था और आपके एक साथ 10 साल खोल दिए गए without even identifying any asset or information above 50 lakh rupees, you can definitely challenge the same reopening by seeking a copy of the satisfaction recorded and raising your objections before the assessing officer. If your assessment is already concluded, you can also take these grounds in appeal. अब बात आती है उन assessees की जो searched entities नहीं है, but information regarding those persons was obtained from the search of another person. So most famously, I think recent search that has led to a flood of notices across Punjab, Chandigarh, even Delhi, UP, is the search conducted at the offices of Omax. Now that one search has led to multiple notices being issued to the assessees merely on the strength of some computer software data, which is not books of accounts. And on the strength of that document alone and a recording of a statement of a data entry operator and a few home biles, your assessee's case has been reopened on the strength of information. अब ये सर्च थी 2022 के स्टार्ट की. अब कुछ assessees के जो केसेस थे 2023 में दोनों तरीके से खोले गए. Some assessees were given a notice under section 148A B of the Act along with an information from the Insight portal, and a proper procedure under section 148 AD was followed, and thereafter the proceedings were over. The other set of cases is where directly a section 148 notice has been issued. This was done more prominently with respect to assessees. अभी जो 2024 में cases खोले, 2023 में दोनों तरह के cases exist करते हैं on this very issue. In fact, 2023 में क्या हुआ था कई cases में, and this litigation point is pending before the Punjab Haryana High Court. In a lot of cases, 148 AB notices got issued to the assessee. But at the same time, without passing any order under section 148 AD, directly a 148 notice was issued. The ground of challenge in these proceedings is that dual proceedings have been maintained with respect to the same assessee and the same assessment year, which is bad in law. Therefore, where the assessee has participated in the 148A proceeding, an order ought to have been passed under section 148 AD before jumping onto the provisions of section 148 of the Act. Or a closure order ought to have been passed before relying on the strength of the explanation to section 148 of the Act. ये अब cases खुल गए हैं, mostly ये cases अपनी thresholds के basis पे खुलते हैं, where the value of information was below 50 lakh rupees. The reopening of assessment was done within a span of 3 years. Where the value of information was above 50 lakh rupees, the threshold of 6 years was being followed. Now, what has happened is because of the introduction of the new procedure altogether from 1924, the old provision was completely amended. So rather than putting a savings clause, that provision has been obliterated from the act itself. There is a subsection added to section 152. 152 एक ऐसा section है, वहां ज्यादा निगाह जाती नहीं है, वो काम नहीं आता रोज रोज जब रीओपनिंग ऑफ असेसमेंट की बात करते हैं. 152 में एक सबसेक्शन 3 ऐड कर दिया गया, that where explanation to section 140, explanation 2 to section 148 led to the reopening of assessment, those cases will be guided by the procedure as it existed prior to the amendment of 1st of September 24. So वो एक छोटा सा क्लॉज ऐड कर दिया है सबसेक्शन 3 में, जरूर पढ़िएगा. इनफैक्ट इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर ऑल assessees where your case might be reopened with respect to a search conducted on another person. Now, with respect to information being passed on from searches, two very prominent litigations have started. एक होता है ये इनसाइट पोर्टल पे इंफॉर्मेशन शेयरिंग बिजनेस हैज कंटिन्यूड फ्रॉम अ वेरी लॉन्ग टाइम. नाउ सम सर्चेस आर एज ओल्ड एज 2016 और 17. उनकी इंफॉर्मेशन अभी भी पास ऑन की जा रही है in blatant violation of Circular 24 of 2015. Circular 24 of 2015 got to be issued by the CBDT in response to the decision of the Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Calcutta Knitwear. Calcutta Knitwear again is a decision of the Honorable Punjab and Haryana High Court which traveled up to the Supreme Court. The issue in Calcutta Knitwear was, what is the timeline for reopening the case of a third party on the strength of the information or incriminating material gathered from a search of a person? Now, the Supreme Court laid down guidelines that there are 3 times where a reopening of assessment can be resorted to. Under Section 153C, I must clarify. Reopening under Section 153C can be resorted to only at 3 stages. First is where the matter is pending with the investigation wing. Secondly, during the pendency, please note, during the pendency of the assessment of the searched person. And the third, which is open to interpretation, factual interpretation, immediately after the conclusion of assessment proceedings of the searched person. तो जो searched person है उसकी assessment के लिए timelines defined है in section 153B. They can go up to 21 months. So जो 2017 की search है उनमें it has been long due and already concluded assessments. So where assessments have been concluded in those cases of the assessees, if my reopening of assessment is now being done on the strength of a search conducted, say in 2016, 17, 18, 19, and under the new regime, I am receiving a notice under section 148 of the Act, relying on the Insight portal. I would like to point out, in such cases, the only resort available with the income tax authorities was a proceeding under section 153C of the Act. आप आज भी स्टैट्यूट बुक उठाएंगे, सेक्शन 153C को डिलीट नहीं किया गया है. Section 153A to 153D are retained in the Act, and there is a reason, because that code is applicable to any search that stood conducted on or before 31st day of March 2021. So go and examine your cases which have been opened on the basis and strength of information which relates to searches conducted prior to 1/4/21. अगर आपके पास ऐसे केसेस हैं, इसमें मैं आपको रेलेवेंट बता देता हूँ. कुछ सर्चेस बिल्डर्स की जरूरी नहीं है सिर्फ ओमैक्स की सर्च पे ध्यान देने का. देयर वर अदर सर्चेस कंडक्टेड ऑन अ लॉट ऑफ डेवलपर्स इन द पास्ट आल्सो. There are other searches on industrialists, etc. also, where the information belongs to a search conducted prior to 1/4/21. And if such an information is being passed on, the only relevant provision was section 153C of the Act. And 148 cannot be relied upon, because the basis of reopening is that an incriminating document has been found in the search of that party, and the information in that incriminating document pertains to or relates to you. These are terms of very wide import. Pertains to and relates to have a very wide import and can cover even if your name is written in the books of accounts. A lot of times reopening of assessment is done that there are unexplained credit entries in the books of accounts of X person, or you have received unexplained credits, and this information is coming from the books of accounts of the searched person. So since books of accounts and documents and other evidences, everything is included under section 153C of the Act. Therefore, you can rely on the provisions of Circular 24 of 2015 and the fact that 153C of the Act is a non-obstant provision. It starts that notwithstanding anything contained in section 147, 148 of the Act. Therefore, where the information relates to a search of a person and that information in incriminating document relates to you, the correct procedure had to be 153C and the time for the same has gone. And because time for 153C has elapsed, therefore you cannot now rely on section 148 to reopen the case. As far as the new law is concerned, अब इसमें controversies कहाँ पे आ रही हैं? First is with respect to explanation 2.4, which relates to the fact that information collected in the search of another person which relates to you, and on the strength of the document alone, you are issued a notice under section 148. I say that there is a blatant violation in terms of my rights under section 148A. This exclusion of assessees who were not even searched persons and reliance on merely investigation wing information to reopen my case tantamounts to borrowed satisfaction. This challenge is pending before various high courts, although not decided. The challenge is to the vires of explanation 2.4 in limiting the rights of an assessee to be allowed to follow the procedure under section 148A of the Act. So an assessee and whose information has been gathered in somebody else's search should be allowed to confront that information under section 148A of the Act. However, no such recourse has been made available. So these are the challenges that existed qua the different sections of the reopening code. अब एक और judgment आई Supreme Court की, which was very celebrated. It upheld the principles that were given in Kabul Chawla's decision, Delhi High Court, with respect to incriminating material during a search. Now, the line of decisions, what they said was that where a search is conducted, the assessment should be based around incriminating material alone. It cannot be a case that no incriminating material was found, but multiple additions were made basis examination of the books of accounts or issuing questionnaires to the assessee. The Supreme Court, while upholding the same, although added that where any other escapement is noted by the assessing officer during this course, the procedure under section 147, reopening of assessment, can be resorted to. Now, in order to overcome the bar of limitation, the Income Tax Department has issued an instruction, CBDT has issued an instruction, whereby the CIT appeal has been directed that in a case where this ground with respect to no incriminating material will be taken, the CIT appeals have been directed to use the power under section 150, which is an exception to the law of limitation under section 149, to reopen the case even beyond the limitation as prescribed under section 149 of the Act. Challenge to this circular itself is also pending before the Delhi High Court. And the likelihood is that these circulars will be challenged before various high courts, because now that appeals have started getting disposed, this circular is being relied upon to exercise the powers under section 150 to reopen the cases of the assessees on the strength of the information which was used and assessed. So the orders are passed that the addition is quashed, but direction is given to the assessing officer to reopen the case under section 148 of the Act by relying on section 150 of the Act. तो एक तरफ रिलीफ भी दे दिया और साथ के साथ आपकी असेसमेंट दोबारा 147 में भी खोल दी, 153A में रिलीफ दे दिया आपको और 147 में आपकी असेसमेंट खोल दी. So these challenges will come to fore with multiple assessees. Now, as far as coming to the new changes beyond 1421, 1422, 1423, multiple amendments came and went. More or less, I have covered the relevant ones, but we can always discuss in the doubt session if there's some major amendment that has been missed. Now comes the new provisions of law that take effect from 1st of September 24. Now, what has been done is there is the search code again removed from section 148 of the Act, and a completely new search code has been introduced in chapter 16. So the idea was to again take search matters as a separate procedure and retain section 147 only with respect to information in possession. अब information के sources more or less same रखे गए हैं even under the new regime as existed in 1421. Search matters are now out of it. The benefit majorly is that 10-year provision has been completely done away. Now one has to keep in mind only two limitations. One is 3 years and 3 months. This is the limitation with respect to any assessment year where the information value is less than 50 lakh rupees. So in those cases, the limitation period now stands at 3 years and 3 months. With respect to assessments where the information value is more than 50 lakh rupees or the escaped income that will be arrived at is more than 50 lakh rupees, in those cases, the limitation period now stands as 5 years and 3 months. Now, you may ask, what is this criteria of 3 months that has been added to the process? Now, if you will appreciate, जो हमारा पुराना लॉ था उसमें there were multiple provisos to section 149. अगर आप प्रोवाइजो 2-3 के बाद की बात करेंगे, प्रोवाइजोज 1-3 जो थे, those were more related to protections as provided under the old law. उसके बाद कुछ प्रोवाइजोज दिए गए थे कि जी अगर मैंने 148 AB का नोटिस दिया है तो द पीरियड जहाँ पे असेसी ने एडजर्नमेंट मांगा है दैट इज टू बी एक्सक्लूडेड फॉर कैलकुलेशन ऑफ लिमिटेशन. फिर एक प्रोवाइजो दिया गया कि अगर असेसी को टाइम देने के बाद और पीरियड को एक्सक्लूड करने के बाद असेसिंग ऑफिसर के पास 7 दिन से कम का टाइम है तो 7 दिन जोड़ दिए जाएंगे उसमें. So as such there were multiple provisions given under section 149 whereby extension of limitation was provided. And section 148 AB of the Act also provided that a minimum period of 7 days has to be given to the assessee to file a reply, and a 30-day extension could be sought. In order to overcome all of these issues, and there were a lot of litigations where the reopening assessment 148 AB notice did not even give 7 days time to the assessee. Uske upar, there are multiple litigations that went on across the country and all in favor of the assessees that principles of natural justice have to be adhered to. Now they have introduced 2 sets of limitations. The first set of limitation is with respect to issuance of a show cause notice under section 148 AB of the Act. That show cause notice has been given the limitation period of 3 years and 5 years. That is the time period with respect to issuance of that show cause notice. Just excuse me. And with respect to passing an order and issuance of a notice under section 148, the limitation is now 5 years, 3 months and 3 years, 3 months respectively. So वो 3 महीने का time दिया गया है to the assessing officer and to the assessee to participate and to pass the necessary orders. The good thing about this time period of 3 months is because the limitation period to issue the show cause notice is set at 5 years and 3 years. So you can expect a notice say at the end of March. But the time to pass an order is 3 months. Therefore, sufficient time is being allowed to the assessee as well to gather all relevant information, seek the relevant information from the assessing officer as well, and file a proper response before the AO. So this is a welcome change as far as the reopening of assessment is concerned, because initially these timelines were very tight and very strict, and how in the past also, because of the burden of files also before the income tax department, most of the reopening of assessment always took at the very fag end. So वो information के basis पे जो assessments खुलनी है, चाहे वो information 2 साल से आई भी होगी, उस पे action उसकी limitation के पास ही लिया जाता था. तो now action on that information and passing of an order, उनके बीच में 3 महीने का टाइम दे दिया गया, and which should be considered as sufficient time. Now 148A procedure is compulsory for all types of information except for only one. In the previous regime, search cases were also out of the purview of section 148A, but now in the current regime, only cases where section 135A applies will be taken out of the purview of section 148A, and in those cases, a direct 148 notice is being issued. But in all other matters, you will have to abide by section 148A procedure, that is issuance of a show cause notice, reply of the SSE, and an order thereafter. So one has to be very careful with respect to the nature of proceedings. And I have explained in the session itself that section 135A as a provision has to be very carefully adhered to by the assessees as well. So it's important to address all AIS, TS and AIR points that are reflecting in your compliance portal before the filing of return, because if the same are not resolved, it will lead to a reopening of assessment, and that can be detrimental to the assessee. So because 148A as a procedure has helped the assessee in the past, this has to be completely abided by. Now coming to certain concepts that existed in the prior law prior to 1421 and seemingly have been taken away in terms of the drafting of the legislation. I would like to touch upon aspects like change of opinion. If you would appreciate, in the law that existed prior to 1421, there were additional limitations within section 147 of the Act, apart from the limitations as prescribed under section 149. उन केसेस में जहां पे एक रेगुलर स्क्रूटनी अंडर सेक्शन 143(3) कंडक्टेड है, वहां पे द असेसिंग ऑफिसर वाज नॉट गिवन द लिबर्टी टू रीओपन अ केस आफ्टर एक्सपायरी ऑफ 4 years फ्रॉम द एंड ऑफ द रेलेवेंट असेसमेंट ईयर if no new information is on record. So perusal and examination of record was not allowed in order to reopen the case of the SSC, where a period of 4 years stood expired. This was the concept that existed in the law prior to 1421. It has been upheld as change of opinion as well. Change of opinion as a doctrine does not just apply to cases for more than 4 years. Change of opinion as a doctrine exists for any case where an issue stands examined by an assessing officer in its entirety. The same cannot be a basis for reopening of the assessment. Initially, there was a lot of litigation around whether audit memos that are supplied to the assessing officer can be treated as a basis for reopening of assessment. There were mixed set of judgments also on this issue. Now, it is part of the legislation itself that section 148 information includes any audit objection to the effect that the assessment was not conducted as per the law. So this again is open to interpretation. An audit objection and an audit memo has to be carefully examined and to arrive at a conclusion whether it is a factual dispute or whether in fact law has not been properly applied by the assessing officer. This is an avenue where change of opinion as a litigation will continue. In fact, with respect to the regime that existed between 1421 and 31st of August 24, this issue has been examined by the Bombay High Court and by the Delhi High Court, and they have upheld that change of opinion is an administrative doctrine. It will stand even if in the new law. Therefore, if an issue has been factually considered, properly examined, and a decision has been taken by the assessing officer, the same cannot be reopened only on the strength of a change of opinion, because under the Income Tax Act, there is only a power to reassess, there is no power to review. So review cannot be exercised by the assessing officer in the garb of a reassessment. This concept will sustain the test of time. अब एक बड़ा important aspect है जो litigation में pending चल रहा था, now resolved by various high courts. हॉट टॉपिक कह रहे हैं इसको, मल्टीपल लिटिगेशंस कमिंग, क्लाइंट्स कॉलिंग कि जी ये जजमेंट आई है, ये मेरे गूगल ग्रुप पे आई है, ये मेरे व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे मुझे शेयर करा गया है मेरे साथ, इज रिगार्डिंग सेक्शन 151A of the Act. Interestingly, this section 151A has been retained by the authorities even under the new regime after 1st of September 24. Section 151A of the Act is with respect to faceless issuance of notice under Section 148. The only change that has taken place after 1924 with respect to 151A is inclusion of even Section 148AB notice in the scope of Section 151A. 151A section कह क्या रहा था? 151A section said that in order to introduce transparency in the process and to uphold the faceless regime, we will allow issuance of 148 notice in terms of the procedure established under section 144B and in a randomized manner. What has been happening is all reassessment proceedings have been continuing before your jurisdictional assessing officer. There is no random allocation of cases. And secondly, there was a notification issued by the Central Board of Direct Taxes, which is notification 18 of 22 on 29th of March 22, wherein the procedure for this issuance of notice was established. It said that the notice under section 148 has to be issued in a faceless manner. This has been interpreted now by four high courts, including the Punjab and Haryana High Court. Decisions in favor exist from the Guwahati High Court, from the Telangana High Court, from Bombay High Court, and also the Punjab and Haryana High Court, wherein it has been interpreted that the department cannot give a go-by to the provisions of section 151A of the Act. These have to be strictly adhered to. And if it is provided that a notice ought to be issued in a faceless manner, if it has been issued by the jurisdictional assessing officer, the same has been held to be illegal and has been quashed by the various high courts. Now, as far as the judicial update on this issue is concerned, as far as the Telangana High Court decision is concerned, it was already pending before the Supreme Court for consideration. The Bombay High Court decision has also reached the Supreme Court, kept for consideration in the month of October. And the Punjab and Haryana High Court SLPs are in progress, and the same will again be taken up in SLP. So, as so far, there is no stay on the operation of the judgment by the Honorable Supreme Court. Therefore, what is happening is that a lot of assessees have started approaching the High Court for seeking a quashing of the 148 notice. Now, I have been asked a lot of questions by my professional friends and colleagues as to is it something that one should exercise as an option or participate in this litigation as far as section 151 is concerned. See, the argument is that because it is pending before the Supreme Court and there is no finality so far, one cannot give any sort of clear answer whether the litigation or the strength of the litigation will survive the test. It will definitely be argued vehemently before the Supreme Court, but at the end of the day, it is a calculated risk one can take at this stage because there is a favorable judgment from your jurisdictional high court also. But one has to be very mindful while exercising such extraordinary jurisdiction. Why I call it extraordinary jurisdiction is that under the Income Tax Act, there is a clear procedure and provision that exists to undertake assessment for appeals, etc. However, if we are taking an extraordinary measure and invoking constitutional provisions under Article 226 of the Constitution of India to file a writ petition, one is the entertainability and maintainability of the writ petition, which is not in challenge here. The second aspect is one has to understand what is the final decision. Now, at the time of quashing these notices, liberty rightly has been granted to the Income Tax Department that if time and limitations still support you, you can issue a fresh notice to the assessee. This is a very important point to be noted. Now, say for example, you've been issued a notice for assessment year 21-22 or for 22-23 assessment. And you end up in this litigation for getting a quashing of your notice on the basis of issuance by the wrong authority, that is the JAO instead of the FAO. In these cases, although the notice stands quashed, the limitation period, whether or not the information is above or below 50 lakh rupees, is yet to expire. The 3-year period will expire respectively on 31st of March 25 and 31st of March 26. So one can expect that even after the litigation closes, there is a possibility that a new notice again will stand issued to the assessee. So this decision whether to go in a writ petition for assessment year 21-22, 22-23 especially has to be taken very carefully, because time is on the department side as well. So jumping into a litigation and not understanding the consequences can also be very fatal. At the same time, one can also see that reopening of assessment was done for, say, assessment years 17-18 at the end of March 24 and 18-19 during this period of August. A lot of assessees did receive notices for 18-19 even in the month of March also. So a lot of cases are pending and assessees are anxious to see how this decision fares. My 2 cents is that writ jurisdiction should not be always opted, especially where you have a good case on merits, which can also be explained before the assessing officer. You can definitely take these grounds before the assessing officer, and also in appeals. Say for years where the assessment order already stands passed and appeals already stand filed. In those cases, you can still opt for taking these additional grounds before the appellate authority. And say tomorrow the Supreme Court also upholds the same, that will certainly help you, because being a legal ground and not a factual issue, this can be taken as an additional ground even at the stage of ITAT. So if you've even crossed the first appellate stage and you're before the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, even in those cases, Section 151A grounds can validly be taken as an additional ground. Now, those assessees whose assessments are pending, again, I reiterate that where you feel that there is a possibility that one can explain the reopening of assessment properly, they can still opt to continue the assessment and take this objection before the assessing officer. But at the same time, where the assessee is interested to seek a quashing, that door is always open. However, one should be wary and aware of this fact that as the litigation travels to the Supreme Court, we cannot comment upon what would be a final decision in these matters, and that can only reveal itself somewhere down the line. Although it is fixed for arguments in October before the Honorable Supreme Court, there is no certainty as to when a judgment on this issue is finally rendered. So that can take its time. So if an assessee is desirous of approaching the Honorable High Court in writ jurisdiction for quashing of a notice, that can be adopted. However, again, subject to understanding of a calculated risk, that again, whatever decision the Honorable Supreme Court says will apply to all the assessees equally in this country, and that revival of any sort of litigation might be possible. I cannot comment on that. As of today, once you file a petition, the notice stands quashed, but tomorrow it can lead to another reopening. So that concludes as far as the deliberation on the issues with respect to reassessment are concerned. I would request the conveners to take up questions.
सर अभी तक तो चैट बॉक्स में एक ही क्वेरी आई है सुभाष जैन जी की. Should the writ route be adopted in small cases or wait for Supreme Court order?
Sir, there is a cost element to everything, and I would certainly say that one has to balance that. And by small case, I am given to understand that the potential addition is small. Sir, do I understand that aspect correctly?
सर अमरजीत कंबोज जी की क्वेरी है। सर अपने आप को अनम्यूट कर लीजिए।
Nikhil ji, good evening.
Good evening.
Amarjeet Kamboj here.
हाँ जी, हाँ जी।
I have two queries. One is with respect to within the jurisdiction of Honorable the Punjab and Haryana High Court, whether these judgments, a number of cases, two leading and the rest are the other co-petitioners.
जी sir.
Hello. Whether these judgments are in persona or in rem. Can we quote and take the benefit before the certainly the assessing officer job how they won't may or may not follow, I do not know, but certainly before AO assessing officer and before the CIT appeal or before the ITAT, if there is any judgment after these judgment, if any passed by the ITAT Chandigarh.
Right, sir. So as far as your query, should I answer the first query or?
Yeah, yes.
Sir, as far as the first part of your query is concerned, the decision in a writ as of today applies in persona. It is open to an authority, say the Commissioner Appeal or the ITAT, to interpret it in favor of the assessee and give the benefit to that assessee. Because it is of a jurisdictional high court, definitely that benefit should stand extended. However, these decisions are not being rendered in a appellate jurisdiction. These are being rendered in a writ jurisdiction.
मुश्किल है, पीछे आवाज आ रही है, क्लियर नहीं आवाज सुनाई दे रही। हाँ जी।
So see, as of today, this benefit of quashing can only be allowed to an assessee who approaches the High Court in writ jurisdiction. So definitely where an assessing officer is concerned, their standard answer, if you've taken the 151A argument, especially in the 1819 reopenings that just happened, in those cases, the standard issue that has been raised in those orders is that we have already challenged the judgments before the Honorable Supreme Court. So since there is no finality, I will continue to follow the procedure as established for me. So rightly so, they are continuing the proceedings. Now, as far as the challenge to further appellate authorities is concerned, these are decisions of a jurisdictional high court. These have to be followed in appellate jurisdiction. The assessing officer ought differ from it as far as the decision is already challenged by the Department of the Revenue in a special leave petition. So today, if you want relief in terms of a quashing, then you will have to approach the Honorable High Court. The same cannot simply be applied by making an argument to the assessing officer on this.
सर बॉम्बे हाई कोर्ट ने काफी 25-25 हजार रुपए की कॉस्ट लगाई है सीसीआई के ऊपर और एओ के ऊपर। उन्होंने ये लिखा कि हम क्योंकि सुप्रीम कोर्ट में चले गए हैं, इसलिए हम हेक्सावेयर की जजमेंट को फॉलो करने के लिए बाध्य नहीं है। अगर अब इन पर्सन की ही ये जुरिस्डिक्शन हो तो हेक्सावेयर के केस में जजमेंट को डिपार्टमेंट ने ना फॉलो करने के कारण बॉम्बे हाई कोर्ट ने पेनल्टी लगाई, फाइन लगाया, पर्सनल फाइन, जो कि उनको एओ को उनको पे करना है। एक तो ये जो कंबोज साहब ने क्वेश्चन पूछा उसके कनेक्शन में ही
that context, sir, just one point to highlight is that it was a case of an assessee who already had challenged the order previously also, and to the same assessee the notice under section 148 was again issued by the jurisdictional officer. So those are cases where the assessees had previously also challenged, and due to closure of limitations, again a notice was being issued to the same assessees using the JAO route.
इसका मतलब निखिल जी, आपके कहने के मुताबिक जो जुरिस्डिक्शनल हाई कोर्ट की जजमेंट है वो सीआईटी अपील और आईटीएटी पे कंपल्सरीली बाइंडिंग नहीं है, क्योंकि पंजाब हरियाणा की तो पता नहीं अभी वो गए हैं कि नहीं गए, कोई स्पेसिफिकली
Diary is filed, it is
दे आर फाइलिंग,
बट
पर
स्टे
जब
कहीं
तक स्टे नहीं
स्टे नहीं
होता,
हुआ।
judgment is not stayed.
तेलंगाना की जो उसमें है वो स्टेट है,
नहीं स्टे नहीं है कहीं भी।
May stay नहीं है sir.
स्टेट जब अगर स्टे नहीं है तो एटलीस्ट सीएटी पील और आईटीएटी पे तो बाइंडिंग है ही है जी।
जी सर, मैं मना नहीं कर रहा उस क्लास में।
ओके ओके
सर इशू, दो इशूज है निखिल जी इसमें। एक इशू तो ये है जो आपने पहले आंसर किया था, कॉस्ट देखनी पड़ेगी बेसिकली। अगर डिपार्टमेंट में हम ये कहते हैं कि ये क्योंकि पंजाब हाई कोर्ट की जजमेंट है, जुडिशनल हाई कोर्ट की जजमेंट है, यू मस्ट फॉलो इट एंड स्टॉप द असेसमेंट एटलीस्ट टेकिंग फर्दर डॉक्यूमेंट्स जब अभी, बिकॉज इट इज नॉट टाइम बर्निंग जस्ट नाउ। वन सेकंड, अगर हम हाई कोर्ट में रिट करते हैं तो एक इशू रहता है, अगर उसके साथ कनेक्टेड कुछ और लीगल पॉइंट्स हैं, वो लीगल पॉइंट्स अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट कहीं ना कहीं इसको अपहेल्ड कर देती है डिपार्टमेंट के स्टैंड को, तो क्या हमारे वो जो लीगल पॉइंट्स हैं उनका क्या स्टेटस रहेगा? बिकॉज अभी हमारे ऑर्डर्स, हमारी नोटिस क्वैश अगर कर देती है रिट में पंजाब हाई कोर्ट, तो और वापस रिस्टोर हो जाएंगे, तो क्या हमारे लीगल पॉइंट्स बाकी खत्म तो नहीं हो जाएंगे?
No sir, never. That will not happen because the issue is being decided on one legal aspect only. So tomorrow, say directions are given to again issue 148 notices or any other direction is given. So as of today, I cannot comment as to what will happen. So one is, I would for one be optimistic to say that it will be upheld in the Supreme Court as well.
I was just listening to Bejan ji just
Ji.
half an hour before. He was of the opinion that there is great apprehension that the Supreme Court may uphold the viewpoint of the department, considering not the legal basis, but the basis that there are lakhs and crores of rupees of the revenue and government are involved. When the department goes and cry there, and Supreme Court, it depends upon the judge who take the decision, that may be upheld.
But as of today, I would not say that I would.
What is
like
your
to
take on
comment
that? I would say, I would just like to ask
No, no,
you.
I understand, sir. I cannot, it would be contemptuous to comment as to the direction of a decision. I can only be optimistic as to whether it is going to be positive from our end. Even if it is not in favor, what would be the consequential action? One cannot contemplate as of today. It is not necessary that always the Honorable Supreme Court will exercise powers under Article 142, as were exercised at the time of Union of India versus Ashish Akaran. Is not necessary. So at the same time, what fate comes, say this is not decided in favor of the SSC coming in the coming time, is something that will be examined at that time. So the legal issues that were raised in your petitions, a petition has to be complete. So the rule of pleadings is I cannot just take one issue and come in the writ court. If there's other issues I had to raise, I will have to make complete pleadings before the honorable court in terms of my challenge. So at least we follow that aspect that we cannot just file an empty petition saying that quash my 148 notice because there was a 151 issue involved. All your other legal grounds are taken. However, the decision is given inter alia only on one aspect.
So what
So,
were the other points taken in the
other
writ?
points, if tomorrow it say revives, your proceedings revive, everything will sustain.
They get revived, no?
They will be revived.
Sir, I have one query related to OMEX cases. सर ओमेक्स में जुरिस्डिक्शनल ऑफिसर ने नोटिस इशू किया 148 के, आफ्टर दैट फेसलेस के अंदर वो चले गए केस, वो वाले
144B का इंटीमेशन नोटिस आया आफ्टर
आया और
फाइलिंग
फेसलेस में, और फेसलेस से नोटिस आने शुरू हो गए। क्या टेक्निकली इन केसेस को जुरिस्डिक्शनल ऑफिसर को करना चाहिए, या सेंट्रल सर्कल में करना चाहिए, या फेसलेस में करना चाहिए? सर आपके क्या व्यू है इसमें?
Sir, as far as centralization is concerned, it is only for the search group so far that centralization is to be taken up. It is persons who are directly connected and required for a centralized search. So as far as information dissemination is concerned, even in the previous regime under section 153C, that could be done by non-central circle officers also, because the information qua that assessee is only passed on. So centralization is not compulsorily required. And as far as I understand, there is an internal board instruction to the officers that in these cases, centralization will not be done. So there is an existence of communication internally also. Directions to the
Sir,
effect of centralization for these cases is not required.
so then
In
these
su-
cases
but in
are to be
such
done by
cases,
done by jurisdictional officer in faceless manner.
Sir, what has to be seen is the issuance of the notice under Section 148. If you would appreciate and follow the judgments of the Punjab Haryana High Court, what has been stated is the point of determination is the issuance of the notice under Section 148. Thereafter, if a notice under Section 144B transfers your case to the faceless assessment, will not do away with the jurisdictional requirement of the notice having been issued by the faceless officer. So one has to consider at the stage of 148 notice. If it is issued by the jurisdictional assessing officer, at least the Punjab and Haryana High Court has consistently followed the view. Whether it is a central circle case, whether it is an international taxation case, whether it is any other case, they are very clear on the stand. It has to be issued by a faceless officer.
but Nikhilji, in case the assessment, the search is before 1st April of 21,
Ji.
then of course the such notice shouldn't be taken up under Section 153C instead
Yes,
of
that is
148.
correct. That is correct.
सर
Because
इसमें
Only for searches prior to 142.
yeah,
सर ये ओमेक्स में मैं दोबारा पूछना चाहूंगा कि
Omax की search sir after 142.
उसी में जैसे ये वाले केसेस 148 जुरिस्डिक्शनल ने इश्यू किए हैं, जो आप कह रहे हो डिपार्टमेंट का इंटरनल सर्कुलर भी है, वो उन्होंने कहा है कि सेंट्रलाइज में ना करते हुए जो जुरिस्डिक्शनल ऑफिसर है वही इश्यू करे ये, क्योंकि ये टेक्निकली ये तो सर्च से रिलेटेड केस हो गए। जो फेसलेस का आया था, जो प्रोसीजर की उसमें कहा था जो सर्च के रिलेटेड केसेस है दैट हैड टू बी डन इन अ फिजिकल मोड, नॉट इन फेसलेस।
Sir,
तो
what was
इसी लाइन में लास्ट ईयर पहले ओमेक्स के केस फेसलेस में चले गए थे, बाद में रिटर्न हुए थे यहाँ पे, तो जुरिस्डिक्शनल ऑफिसर ने ऑर्डर पास किए थे।
उसका रीजन बता देता हूँ सर. That is more of an internal thing, but what happened was a lot of cases started getting dropped in faceless assessment because of the arguments made by the assessees with respect to their claim that no cash has been given to the builder. A lot of assessments were dropped. Now, in order to assess the same as per the information passed on by the investigation wing, the same were transferred at the very fag end to the assessing officer to complete the assessment as per directions.
But that means that assessment is also done wrong.
Sir, वो assessment गलत नहीं हुई है.
नहीं, technically, not on merit, technically.
So centralization was never a requirement in those cases. One issue that you can harp on in these cases, I would recommend आप 148 148B के provisions पढ़िए. Because in any case where the reopening was done on the basis of explanation 2, there was an approval of a joint commissioner that was necessary before passing of an assessment order. आप उस चीज को जरूर एक्सप्लोर करिएगा जो आपके केसेस खुल गए थे पिछले सालों के जिसमें असेसमेंट ऑर्डर पास हो गया है. There have been departures from that procedure in some of the cases. So that is one thing you can look at. What the notification provided under Section 144B was cases under central charges shall be done in a non-faceless manner. Cases under international taxation should be done in a non-faceless manner. Apart from that, under Section 144B clause subsection 8, the board is empowered to transfer any case from the NFAC to the jurisdictional officer. In all of these cases, that direction has been obtained to transfer them from the faceless regime to the assessing officer. That power can be exercised by the board. Now, in order to go deeper into the examination of this issue, you can definitely inspect the file to see a copy of this approval. And if there are anomalies in this approval taken to transfer your case from the faceless regime to your assessing officer. However, in majority of the cases, the assessing officer has quoted the approval number in his order. So yes, 144B in itself has an inbuilt escape mechanism also. Any assessment which is going on in faceless can be sent back to the assessing officer for n number of reasons.
सर इसमें जो पुष्कर जी का था क्वेश्चन, उसको अगर कंटिन्यू कर रहे हैं ओमेक्स के केसेस में, तो the same assessing officer has taken different approaches while issuing notice under section 148. Last
जी
year they issued notices under section 148A.
जी सर, वो मैंने डिस्कस करा था, उनमें
And-
कईयों में तो 148 AD भी नहीं पास हुआ.
हाँ नहीं, that is another issue. In
Yes.
some in the cases in which they have issued 148A, they have issued now they issued 148AD order issued, and after that they issued a notice under section 148. But this year they have done away with that procedure and they have directly issued notice under section 148,
That is
relying on the
correct.
proviso to section 148A.
That is correct.
But now, but which procedure is correct?
Sir, both are under challenge.
Nee, what is your view? What is your view?
Sir, it's a devil's advocate argument. अगर आपको 148 AD का प्रोसीजर फॉलो करके मैं ये कहूँगा कि जी मुझे सीधा 148 का नोटिस देना चाहिए था. That I would say is on a little bit of a weaker footing on that argument. I would rather sustain my argument on borrowed satisfaction. I would say that information has just been picked up from the investigation wing. There are judgments of multiple high courts, including the jurisdictional high court in Paramjit Court 2008 ITR, which clearly indicate that simply relying on investigation wing information and not listening to the assessee is tantamount to borrowed satisfaction. So where the procedure completely has been followed under section 148A and completed to fruition by passing an order under section 148AD. In those cases, it will be clearly written that I have examined the record and I find that it is a fit case. So they will not comment upon anything. They will simply say that investigation wing has sent me reliable information. Therefore, I'm opening your case. The moment they say that, that is borrowed satisfaction.
सर इसमें चलो अगर हम कहते हैं कि 148A देखो अगर तो if they directly issue 148, now there was a circular as you said कि भाई सेंट्रल चार्ज का असेसमेंट करना जरूरी नहीं था जो 3rd August 2023 का सर्कुलर था.
An internal instruction, it's not a circular.
That is an internal instruction. तो
Yes.
उसमें उन्होंने लिखा है कि भाई जुरिडिक्शनल एओ करेगा, सेंट्रल सर्कल जरूरी नहीं है. तो फिर
जी.
उसको फेसलेस में कैसे भेज दिया इन्होंने? अगर उस सर्कुलर के ऊपर हम रिलाई कर रहे हैं तो
The
फिर
circular
सेंट्रल चार्ज
circular
नहीं
is
करना तो
not
जीरो
on.
में तो करना.
No, circular is on central charges. Circular is not on search cases. Again, I would like to draw a distinction. The circular is with respect to cases pending before central charges. When your case is not pending before the central charges, section 144B in its full strength will apply. Your case will be assessed in faceless.
Okay.
But issuing a 148 notice directly without following the procedure, this is the amendment ki if any information pertaining to any other person is found at the premises of the person searched, then certainly the department is not correct in issuing notices under section 148 directly as provided in the law.
Sir, the strength is drawn from explanation 2 clause 4 read with section 148A proviso D. The combination of the two provides that firstly, section 148A is not to apply to cases where information of a third party is obtained from a search of any person. And explanation 2.4 says that in cases of search where information has been obtained and it relates to or pertains to a third party, the assessing officer is deemed to be in possession of information and he can issue the notice under section 148. Why this has been done is because the procedure of 148A is completely done away with as provided under section 148 subsection 1. So at the end of the day, the procedure in these cases as has been followed, the assessing officer who has received the information either from the investigation wing or from the assessing officer has recorded a satisfaction on the basis of the documents in possession. That satisfaction note has then been approved by the relevant authority. That could be the PCIT or the Chief Commissioner of Police. So after due approval, they have issued the notice under section 142. In OMAX cases especially, I am not saying that all cases, in fact, in my own office, all cases are not before the jurisdictional high court. It's not the fact that everyone has to approach the high court. In these cases, the procedure, at least what I am following is, first I file my return, I follow GK and drive shaft in these. I am reviving that law. I file my return. I ask the assessing officer to share a copy of the reasons recorded. After he gives me a copy of the reason and the approval memorandum, I file my objections. One of the documents I am including in my objections is a certificate that OMAX gives with respect to the payments received from the assessee. On the strength of that certificate, I challenge the presumption of information available with the assessing officer. The information available with the assessing officer is a statement recorded of a person not identifying me. Secondly, a confession recorded by an assessee that is not linked to me. On the strength of these documents, if my case is being opened, I can squarely rely on n number of judgments starting from BC Shukla and up to Common Cause 2017. In 2023, the Karnataka High Court has again upheld all these provisions in Sunil Kumar Sharma's case. Now the Supreme Court has also dismissed the SLP in that case. Therefore, one has to rebut the presumption under the explanation 2.4 by filing objections to the reasons of reopening and ask the assessing officer to dispose of those objections before proceeding with the assessment. In fact, everyone is not challenging 151A provision, sir. There are challenges laid to the very reopening of assessment because of third-party information before the Honorable High Court. In those, the aspect is that mere reliance on third-party information without corroboration cannot be the basis for reopening of assessment. In those cases, we file proper objections, take a disposal, and then come to the High Court. Any further
query from issue by CA Satpal ji?
Vikas Gupta ji has also raised his hand. I think he has some issue.
Haan ji, sir.
May I speak, sir?
Hello. I am audible.
Myself, DSP Goyal. May I speak, sir? I am audible.
हाँ जी सर प्लीज.
सर निखिल जी, आपने कहा कि जब 1/9/2024 में से सेक्शन 148 में 3 year 3 months दे दिया, if the escaped income is less than 50 lakhs.
जी.
3 year 3 month. 3 month का जो पीरियड दिया है, इशू ऑफ फर्स्ट नोटिस अंडर सेक्शन 148A टू कंप्लीट द प्रोसेस 148A to D. ये 3 month का पीरियड कौन सा है, या इशू ऑफ फर्स्ट नोटिस द डिपार्टमेंट कैन इशू फर्स्ट नोटिस 3 year to 3 month within 3 year to 3 month?
सर सेक्शन में 2 लिमिटेशंस दी गई हैं
जी.
पहली लिमिटेशन है टू इशू द शो कॉज नोटिस अंडर सेक्शन 148.
A.
The limitation to issue the notice under section 148A, that is the show cause notice. Show cause notice limitation 3 or 5 years.
3 year or 5 year, yes.
जी. 148 का नोटिस देने के लिए लिमिटेशन है 3 साल 3 महीने और 5 साल 3.
148 का नोटिस देने के लिए 3 साल 3 महीने.
तो जो ये 3 महीने का पीरियड है, इस दौरान में आप जवाब देंगे, आपका 148AD का ऑर्डर पास होगा और 148 का नोटिस इशू किया जाएगा.
मतलब उसको 3 महीने का टाइम दे दिया कि
जो कि पुराने लॉ में केवल 7 दिन का टाइम था, उसको बढ़ा के इन्होंने 3 महीने का टाइम कर दिया.
अब 148 का नोटिस विद इन 3 मंथ दे देगा, 3 और 3 मंथ में 3 महीने का टाइम दे दिया
जी.
कंप्लीट दैट प्रोसेस.
एनी शो कॉज दैट हैज टू बी इशूड विद इन 3 years and 5 years.
निखिल जी, इससे लगती कोई नहीं थी. जैसे 31/3/21 को नोटिस दिए थे इसको सिस्टम के अंदर, कई नोटिस अनडेटेड थे सिस्टम में. डिपार्टमेंट ने एट द टाइम इशू नोटिस ऑन 31 मार्च, उसमें डेट ऑफ इशू ऑफ नोटिस नहीं था, जबकि बाद में 15 दिन या 20 दिन के बाद वो 31 डाल दी.
5 तरह के इश्यूज नोट करे गए थे इन केसेस में.
जी.
एक तो था कि 31/3/21 का नोटिस अनसाइंड था. दूसरा इशू था 31/3/21 का जो नोटिस था वो पोर्टल पे और ईमेल पे 1/4/21 या उसके बाद आया. तीसरा इशू था 31/3/21 का नोटिस इशू करने के बाद आपको एक और 148 का नोटिस इशू हो गया था जिसपे डिजिटल सिग्नेचर था, और वो अप्रैल के महीने का था. ऐसा इशू भी आया था. फिर इशू आया कि जो आपका 148 का नोटिस था वो किसी भी तरीके से ना ईमेल पे ना फिजिकल किसी भी फॉर्मेट में सर्विस नहीं किया गया था. और लास्टली हमारे इन केसेस में एक इशू था कि 31 मार्च 21 का नोटिस जो था वो असेसी के स्पैम फोल्डर में चला गया, या असेसी ने उसको एक्सेस पोर्टल पे करा जो कि ईमेल पे नहीं था. दैट वाज डन आफ्टर 1st of April 21. The Delhi High Court in the case of Sumanjeet Agarwal, sir, the judgment is Sumanjeet Agarwal, has discussed and decided on all of these issues and concluded that these notices will be deemed to be treated as notices under section 148 AB in terms of Union of India versus Ashish Agarwal, and the procedure ought to be followed as was provided in that. This is only the Delhi High Court that has been decided so far. No challenge to this judgment has been laid by the revenue before the Supreme.
ठीक है सर। निखिल जी, एक क्वेश्चन और मेरा एक हिसाब लगता है, कई बार there is a delay in filing appeal with the first appeal court. We make an application for continuation of delay, and the judgment has been passed earlier, ex parte judgment. Notice has not been served on the assessee. Assessee has not got chance to reply earlier notice for any reasons. So we first filed an application for continuation of delay, and also filed an application with the appeal under section under rule 46A 46A. तो मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि जो कंटिन्यूएशन ऑफ डिले के साथ 46A की एप्लीकेशन फाइल कर दो, जो अपील फाइल करते समय आई थिंक एडिशनल डॉक्यूमेंट देने की जरूरत नहीं है। वो तो मेरी अगर कंटिन्यूएशन डिले करेंगे और 46A की एप्लीकेशन को परमिट करेंगे, देन आई ऑफर टू प्रोड्यूस द डॉक्यूमेंट इफ एनी कॉल्ड फॉर टू प्रोड्यूस माय case.
There is no bar on filing an application in Rule 46A at any stage during the pendency of your appeal. So the documents ought to be filed at a reasonable stage, yes, but there is no requirement to file the additional evidence at the very stage of filing the appeal. That is one. The second aspect is now, interestingly, although the topic for today's discussion was section 148 only, appeals में एक amendment आई है which is very relevant. Now the Commissioner of Income Tax Appeal has been empowered with remand. So the CIT appeal itself in 144 cases will now have the power to set aside the matter where it is demonstrated that reasonable opportunity to file the additional evidence was not provided before the assessing officer. It is a procedural amendment. Therefore, it will apply even to pending appeals which were filed prior to the amendment in law. So therefore, in cases of 144, I would highly recommend to all my professional friends that if any additional evidence is required to be filed and that can substantially change the outcome, one can also plead for a remand back. The benefit of the set aside of your order is your demand completely goes away, because that order will then be sent to remission and you are undertaking proceedings afresh. So if it is a high-pitched assessment, especially under section 144, this is a reasonable solution that you can seek a set aside of your proceeding and thereafter produce the relevant evidence. However, as I understand, this power will not be very generously exercised by the CIT appeals, and one will have to make out a very genuine case for a set aside.
Sir, in this case, if I add
appeal, faceless appeal के अंदर ही I have to to set aside the case because the
will have to file an application giving citation of the section.
prayer में डाल दें कि because the order has been passed under section 148 so moto with ex parte, so the case may be set aside and handed back to the AO4 for us giving an opportunity to the say.
Sir, इस केस में फिर ये JO के पास जाएगा, फेसलेस में जाएगा?
I don't think this is a request part. It is for the CIT to see whether it is to be remanded back or it is decided by the
for CIT to see. So in that case, it will go to JO or it will go to faceless.
We have to go in a.
I have seen both procedures. Honestly, for remand backs that happened from the ITAT, I've seen a few cases going through, wherein either the jurisdictional officer has obtained the approvals to complete the assessment at his end, and there are also cases which have been transferred to the faceless authority after being remanded back. So as such, I think there needs to be some clear instructions given, although section 144B is very clear in its wording. Every proceeding of assessment has to be done in a faceless manner. So it does not segregate any remand back proceeding.
So we have to file an appeal to the first appeal authority. No other step one. We have to file an appeal with the first appeal authority.
जी सर, जहां ऑर्डर पास हो गया वहां अपील तो
करनी है सर। विकास जी आपका, विकास जी आपकी
थैंक यू।
हाँ जी निखिल जी, पर्टिकुलरली इन ओमैक्स केस जैसे 148 इशू हो चुका है ज्यूरिडिक्शनल एओ से और देन 142 1 हो गया, So what do you suggest? Should we go for a reply with this 142 or wait for some time?
So दो
And what
तीन
is
चीजें बोलूंगा।
basically the outcome?
एक तो ऑब्टेन कीजिए कॉपी ऑफ द रीजन, सेटिस्फैक्शन नोट एंड रीजंस। उसमें से निकल के आएगा इंफॉर्मेशन वैल्यू। दैट इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट। जो 148 का नोटिस है उसमें कुछ नहीं लिखा होता। 142(1) के नोटिस इतने बेकार आ रहे हैं। 142(1) के नोटिस में लिखा आता है प्लीज एक्सप्लेन द कैश डिपॉजिटेड विद ओमेक्स।
Yes.
आप
This is the only point.
हाँ सर,
ना
बिल्कुल
अलेजेड
बिल्कुल ठीक है।
इंफॉर्मेशन का रेफरेंस देंगे, सीधा लिख देंगे प्लीज एक्सप्लेन द कैश डिपॉजिटेड।
सर ये भी लिखा है कि भाई रीजंस हैव बीन गिवन इन 148 AD और 148 A इशू नहीं हुआ।
हाँ, there are multiple anomalies. First step in such cases, please file an application before the jurisdictional officer as well as your faceless authority to provide you a copy of the approval satisfaction memorandum. So
So we should
उसमें
reply.
आपको when you are certain of the amount that the income tax department is having in possession, आप एक कंक्लूजन पे पहुंचेंगे। अगर वो केस से फॉर एग्जांपल 20-21 का है,
20-21
में
का ही
अगर
है।
50 लाख से कम का अमाउंट है तो 3 साल का पीरियड आज की डेट में खत्म होता है।
कितनी अमाउंट बताई सर?
50 लाख से कम अगर अमाउंट आपका
Okay. It is more than 50 lakh in my case.
एंड द असेसमेंट ईयर इज
2021.
सो सर आपके केस में द लिमिटेशन पीरियड इज 5 years.
Okay.
In such a case, even if you get a quashing from the High Court, you will always be susceptible to another reopening notice because the decision of the Honorable High Court is, if time permits, they can issue you another notice.
Sorry, थोड़ा हेलो
जी
हाँ जी हाँ जी।
हाँ जी वो एक कॉल आ गई थी, मैं सुन नहीं सका आपका लास्ट पॉइंट।
मैं ये कह रहा था अगर 50 लाख से ज्यादा की इंफॉर्मेशन है और 20-21 या उसके बाद का कोई भी साल है, in those cases you will be susceptible to another 148 notice because the honorable court has not taken away the right in entirety. It says that if time is available you can again issue a notice as per law. पहला तो as per law will be defined by the honorable Supreme Court and secondly आपका 2021 का केस 2026 तक खुल सकता है and I am certain ये 2024 क्या पता पार कर जाए but 2025 तो नहीं पार करेगा। डिसीजन ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट का तब तक आ जाएगा इस इशू में।
सर
तो चीफ
राजीव
आंसर जी
आंसर जी।
आपकी बारी है।
Sir, Nikhil ji, namaskar. Nikhil ji, in one of my case, the video conference was conducted while passing the order 148, and the order was passed against the assessee. I asked for the video conference recording, and they did not provide me. I raised the grievances also many times. They did not provide the recordings. So, what is the relevance of recording or whether how it can be get?
What portal was the video conferencing allowed on?
Sir, under 148 assessment before passing the order,
which software was used for the VC?
I think they provide the link on the e proceeding option to
So,
conduct the video recording in video conference.
Conferencing का link आया था आपको?
Yes, in video conference link.
On the Seek video conferencing,
yes,
generally it is auto uploaded. The entire video is uploaded under the Seek video conferencing tab itself, and it is preserved over there. So you can one check that.
सर राजीव जी ठीक कह रहे हैं, वहाँ पे नहीं आ रही है अभी वीडियो।
नहीं आता sir. I actually one of my other colleague also raised the question with me that whether you are able to get the recording. I said no, I am not able to get the recordings on the Seek video option either in the mail, either on the communication or observations. I raised the grievances many times. And
वहाँ
because
पे
in
वैसे
the
noted आ रहा है that the video conferencing was conducted.
yes, that is done.
The VC
So
link and everything.
that is a main evidence because some documents have been submitted while video conferencing or uploading option. That can be quoted in the next EAT appeal also that we could not submit at the time of physical submission, but we given the documents on the video conference. So what is the procedure to get there? Whether it is
Grievances
relevant.
have been raised by you. At max, you can do a CP-gram. If all else fails, there is a writ of mandamus. A mandamus is a writ to issue directions to an authority. You can opt for a writ of mandamus before the honorable court to direct the assessing officer to provide you a copy of that.
Whether it amounts to bad assessment if they do not provide also recordings before the appealing authority.
Sir, the non-provision of recording per se will not lead to a perversity. At max, it is a violation of natural justice, yes. And you have stopped from taking certain arguments, yes. But I don't see this leading to a quashing altogether. This could be a case for a remand back.
Sir, in one of my case, assessment is opened based on the chat communication of assessee with the dealer. That there is a cash transaction of 1.5 crore and 30 lakh is the 50 lakh is the white payment. So on the basis of that chat communication, they have opened the assessment asking for the source of that cash payment. But on record, it is only the agreement with the dealer builder is only for 50 lakh. So that is the borrowed information, or whether it is a good case, or whether we can challenge that it is a borrowed information, it should be quashed at 148 stage, or it will be travel to ITT.
Sir, I have too less information to.
But it might travel to ITT, or
I can discuss this with you separately, but so far the data is insufficient to give a. Yes, you can make a challenge for borrowed satisfaction. Yes, but certain considerations will have to be in place.
But you experience that it travel to ITT level, or it is maximally decided at 148 level in that cases from the chat communication.
So far, we have seen success even in search cases before the assessment level also. Without any sort of further appeal.
We raised objections also. We raised objection and we asked for the evidence and assessing officer satisfaction ki how they come to know they are satisfied that this is correct information, because any chat discussion is not a.
These are very factual disputes, sir.
Sir, detailed discussion आप वैसे कर लीजिए.
I will take your contact also, sir. These are
I will leave it in the chat.
Thank you.
राजीव जी, मैं यहाँ एक चीज ऐड करूंगा. वैसे तो ऑफ द रिकॉर्ड ये है कि जब भी वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंसिंग करें ना इन फ्यूचर, आप मोबाइल पे अपनी वो रिकॉर्डिंग सारी कर लो जरूर. ये दिक्कत डिपार्टमेंट से लेने में आ रही है. सेकंड क्या है कि वो एक ईमेल है समाधान.faceless.appeal या समाधान.faceless.assessment. उसमें भी जाके आप अपनी ग्रीवियंस डाल सकते हैं, या आप सीपी ग्राम को जो प्रोसीजर है ना, सीपी ग्राम डाल के भी ट्राई कर लीजिए. उम्मीद है पक्का 30 दिन में के अंदर आपको ये मिल जाएगी.
Right, sir. Right,
sir, I think mobile recording can't be used as evidence in CIT appeal, sir. But it is for our record purpose only.
It is coming to everyone. Well, this problem is with everyone. They are not providing the recordings.
वो सीपी ग्राम बोल रहा हूँ ना जी, आप सीपी ग्राम प्लेटफॉर्म यूज कर लीजिए, या समाधान.faceless.assessment पे जाके मेल डाल के देखिए.
I think CP gram is the best tool because they reward
दे देगा, ज्यादा अच्छा है. ये समाधान तो ठीक है सर, डीटीवी तो रिप्रेजेंटेशन दवा तो ज्यादा अच्छा है.
निखिल जी, मेरी क्वेरी जो है दैट इज विद रिस्पेक्ट टू दैट 50 लाख जो क्वेरी आपकी ओमेक्स की भी है, और अदरवाइज आल्सो 149 1B में 3 उन्होंने क्लॉजेस दी हुई हैं. वन इज द एसेट, एक्सपेंडिचर एंड एंट्री. तो अगर 2 साल में मेरा 50 लाख बनता हो तो क्या उसमें डिपार्टमेंट कवर कर सकता है? वन थिंग. सेकेंडली, जो सेकेंड क्लॉज है उसमें बड़ा क्लियर लिखा हुआ है कि एक्सपेंडिचर इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ ए ट्रांजैक्शन और इन रिलेशन टू एन इवेंट और ओकेजन. तो क्या यहाँ पे वो सम अप करना है, या मान लीजिए 5-6 एंट्रीज हैं और सिंगल लेस देन 50 लाख है, या जैसे कोई केसेस बोगस परचेजेस के निकल रहे हैं, मेरी इंडिविजुअल ट्रांजैक्शंस तो कम है, 5 पार्टियों का मिला के वो मेरा 50 लाख से ऊपर होता है. तो लेकिन क्योंकि जो थर्ड क्लॉज है उसमें लिखा हुआ है एन एंट्री और एंट्रीज, वहां तो सिंगुलर और प्लूरल उन्होंने कर दिया, लेकिन इट इज नॉट देयर इन द सेकंड क्लॉज.
Sir, as far as your query with respect to clubbing is concerned, the regime has existed between 1/4/21 and 31st of August 24. I would refer to subsection 1A. There was a subsection 1A to section 149, which clearly provided for clubbing, where the asset or expense or the entries in multiple years together would be above 50 lakh rupees. So this provision existed in the law as it stood up to 31st of August 21. However, this provision has not sustained in the amendment on 1st of September 24. So अब ये provision हटा दी गई है. Although अभी एक इंटरेस्टिंग फैक्ट मैंने सेक्शन 152 की बात करी थी, वहाँ 152 में सबसेक्शन 3 में उन्होंने नोट करा है फॉर सर्च केसेस विद रिस्पेक्ट टू period of 1/4/21 to 31st of August 24, the regime as was given from prior to 1st of September 24 shall apply. अगर उसको यूज करा जाता है तो इन सर्च केसेस that provision of subsection 1A can still be used. However, for other SSCs after 1st of September 24, that clubbing provision has been removed.
Arun, I think we don't have any further queries. So you,
Nikhil ji, one query thi choti si. Whether there is any timeline for CIT appeal to start the proceeding, because many cases they more than 5 years they have even not initiated any single notice after filing the appeals.
No, sorry, sir, could you repeat that?
Sir, the CIT appeals are after filing last 5 years back, some of appeals are still pending to be started by the CIT. So is there any timeline they have fixed for CIT appeal to be started?
Kindly refer to subsection 6A of section 250. It says the CIT appeal should endeavor to conclude the proceedings in a period of 1 year from the end of the year in which the appeal is filed. Although that is not very much followed. However, thereafter, there is a CBDT instruction to this effect. I can share it with you, where they have noted certain category of cases where you can make a request to your jurisdictional PCIT for an early hearing of your appeal. So those cases are of senior and super senior citizens, additions of above ₹1 crore, and there was also a provision for VIP cases. I don't know what those are, but certainly
Nothing is done, Nikhil ji. I have already followed this circular and made representation, uploaded everything, and still it is more than a year's time. In one case, I have forwarded this priority fixation through the PCIT 2 times, but nothing has materialized.
In those cases, I always say
equally है.
मुझे लग रहा है कि वो यही इंतजार कर रहे हैं कि 1 अक्टूबर आए और इन सभी केसेस को वापस भेज दें।
सर, मैं आपको ना 2-3 रीजंस बताता हूँ केसेस को पेंडिंग क्यों रखा जा रहा था इतने टाइम तक। एक तो विवाद से विश्वास स्कीम लॉन्च करनी थी, वो अब आज की डेट में आ गई है। द आइडिया इज दैट सम केसेस माइट गेट सेटल्ड एट द फर्स्ट एंड सेकंड एपेलेट लेवल. Secondly, a lot of cases were being kept pending because of the issue of staff. There was very less staff available, so now JCITs were also included within the scope of JCIT appeals. Now redistribution of cases has also happened. And in cases where despite your representations even to the jurisdictional PCIT, no action has been taken, you're always welcome to take steps under Article 226 of the Constitution in a writ of mandamus. And the Honorable High Court has given directions that the appeal be decided, say, in a period of 2 to 4 months. So those directions then have to be complied by the PCIT to get the appeal disposed of within the time limit set.
Sir, I think sir, one last query just relating to Omex cases, just to discuss कि चलो 148 और 148A का तो हो गया question. Now, मतलब coming to मतलब reasons they have recorded to reopen the case, like in the satisfaction note which they have written. In the satisfaction note, मतलब what I have noticed, they have written that there are few things which substantiate the reopening of the cases. These 3 things are bank statement of the different entities of the Omex group, oral evidence of the employees, and statement recorded under oath of its customers. Now, if we take a particular case of any SSE relating to Omex, who they are alleging that they have given the cash. Now, first of all, how bank statements are would substantiate that cash is being given. Relating to bank statement, how bank statement is substantiating that cash is being given. Second, oral evidence of employees. Employee has never taken the name of any customer or any SSC, if you say. And as per the principles of natural justice also, the oral evidences cannot be relied upon by the department to reopen the cases. Third, statement recorded under oath of customers. Now, SSC, like any SSC, is also a customer, and his statement has not been recorded. Now, which customers has statement has been recorded, his case might they might reopen, but they cannot reopen the case of all the persons on the statement of 1 or 2 persons. The 3 things they have written, which I have read, the satisfaction note that I have read, they have clearly written that on basis of these 3 points, we ought to open the cases of the other assessees. Where a assessee stands if these 3 points tomorrow we challenge.
तीनों पे आपको मैं देता हूँ. फर्स्ट मैं डिपार्टमेंट के सपोर्ट में एक आर्गुमेंट दूंगा. वैसे how bank statements become relevant, the CMR data they are relying on, the customer management reports data that they're relying on, contains both bank statements as well as cash entries. So where a data corroborates as far as the bank entries are concerned, if that matches with your dates of payment, they can make an argument that there is preponderance of probabilities that the bank entries are duly recorded. Therefore, the cash entries ought to be assessed in the hands of the assessee. I am of complete belief that your assessee has not paid any cash. What that? What I have already suggested, this query was raised before also. We recommend that you go to OMAX, not just obtain that statement of payments. They issue a certificate assessment year wise that in this assessment year, these payments have been received and no cash has been received from these. Once you have that evidence in hand, that presumption of evidence is rebutted. The evidence that is being relied upon belongs to other assessees. Why you, where the company itself, who is the searched person, has given a document. The correct procedure thereafter is for the assessing officer to issue requisitions under section 133(6) of the Act and to obtain confirmations from the party giving the statement. And if those confirmations are given by the party, your case does not stand on any legs as instituted by the department. Because in your case, a confirmation is given that the data is incorrect and no cash has been received from such an assessee. Thirdly, I had relied on certain judgments. I again repeat that for the benefit of all audience. There is reliance on third-party information alone cannot be a basis of reassessment. It has been upheld in CBI versus VC Shukla. It has been upheld in Indian Common Cause Society 2017, and more recently by the Karnataka High Court in Sunil Kumar Sharma. Merely recording of statements of some unrelated party cannot be a basis of reopening of your assessment. That has been held by the Delhi High Court in Pilot Industries and Harjeev Agarwal's case. So these are the decisions that you can rely on. Another thing that I had suggested earlier also, in these cases where reopening has been done merely by issuing a 148 notice, I strongly suggest that you obtain a copy of the approval memorandum. Thereafter, file your objections, including all these objections and providing a statement from OMAX that no, they have not paid cash. And then fight your case. Because at the end of the day, evidence presumption, the biggest problem in explanation 2.4 is that the assessing officer is deemed to be in possession of information. That deeming fiction is rebutted the moment you give evidence to show that information is incorrect. When the information in itself is incorrect, there is no basis of institution of proceedings.
So, members, any other query?
Sir, one more query. There is a recent judgment of Punjab and Haryana High Court that there is a judicial assessing officer cannot issue any notice under faceless. So whether we can take advantage of that to pending cases in filing the cases directly in the High Court?
So you are talking about cases where appeal is filed?
The cases which are pending between appeal or ITT or CIT.
So where the appellate remedy is already exercised, although the Honorable Punjab and Haryana High Court in the past, in one of our judgments, Misty Meadows has also held that appellate remedy is not a bar. There is a Delhi High Court, Gurgaon Realtek, which also says that you can take up issues before the writ court, even in case an appeal is being exercised. However, the Honorable Court, especially in OMAX matters and 151A cases, has refrained from taking cognizance if an appeal has already been filed. So there have been cases where this position has been tested. Although I again say every day is a new day. That cannot be said to be a precedent, but there is, as of today, especially on 151A, this was a case of an assessee from Ambala, where they challenged the issue of notice by the jurisdictional officer and where appeal was already filed. the Honorable Court directed that this ground be taken before the CIT appeal and that ground be decided by the CIT appeal. But they did not interfere and quash the notice. So the only direction that was given was that this ground be taken before the appellate authority.
Members, I think Nikhil ji has really spoken very, very well. He has explained the provisions of Section 148 since inception and what is going to come in the years to come in a very, very elaborating manner. I think he has left no stone unturned in explaining the provisions and answering the queries that has been raised by members. He has answered all the queries in a very lucid manner and in a very clear words. He's really having a very great and good knowledge of the provisions of Section 148, and there is no doubt that he's a master in this subject. Of course, he's fighting the cases before High Court, so he does not need any proof to showcase his talent.
We are learning every day, and our
Obviously,
source of learning is our professional friends. Because
it's ever the learning is going to go forever. There is no doubt in that. And I think I was observing that his health is also not. He's not feeling very well today. I think he has not turned on his AC also, and he was having a little cough also. So I think he has delivered the lecture with some ill health. So I am really thankful to Nikhil ji for taking out the time from his busy schedule and addressing the members. And I'm also thankful to members that they have attended the meeting and have really participated in whole of the webinar, in spite of the fact that it's September and a lot of audit work is going on. And nowadays everything is done in the last month only. So we were expecting that maybe a few members will come, but there was a good number of members who were present here, and they remained there till end. And it was really a great session. Great queries came out, and they were suitably answered by Nikhil ji. So I'm thankful to all our members and the speaker for this beautiful webinar. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nikhil ji. Thanks for sparing your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Thank
also.
you, members. With this, we